Welcome back to Perkins Pipes. Got this this bent poker that I had made some time back. Shiny black, like the blackness of space. And I'm wearing my Purdue dad shirt and my Purdue hat. And we've got some good old-fashioned Sir Walter Raleigh here, who was an explorer. And there's a reason for all of that. So, let's get this guy lit. Let's get to talking. Oh, I do like the smell of that Sir Walter Raleigh, and certainly the taste. Good codger blend. Nice stuff there. Okay. So what are we talking about? Why the blackness of space? Why this Purdue stuff? Why Sir Walter Raleigh? Well, I want to talk about a couple of books. I want to talk about a couple of science fiction books by Andy Weir, W-E-I-R. And I almost guarantee you've heard of one of them, which has been made into a film. This other one's going to be made into a film as well. It's in production. But if you've ever seen a film called The Martian, starring Matt Damon, that's the film version of the first book I want to talk about. And the second one is called Project Hail Mary, and it's in production right now, and my understanding is that Ryan Gosling is going to play the main character there. So, let's talk about this. First of all, Sir Walter Raleigh was an explorer, and these two books I want to talk about here briefly involve explorers. The one is about an astronaut stranded on Mars, and the other one is about a fellow who is sent out into space to find a new home for human beings 12 light years away. Obviously, the black pipe, the blackness of space, even the little silver ring there, I don't know, it seems kind of spacey. And I am wearing the Purdue gear because my daughter is studying chemistry at Purdue University, and she wants to be in the aerospace field. Maybe she kind of has some dreams of maybe working for NASA or SpaceX or something like this. She doesn't really want to be an astronaut. That's why she's not doing astronautical engineering or aeronautical engineering or anything like that. But she's doing chemistry as her major, and she really does have an interest in aerospace. So all of that is for that. And so, Olivia, sweetheart, part of this is for you. Okay. I love both of these books. Now, I'll admit I saw the movie of The Martian first. I didn't know it was a book. Saw the film, loved it, realized it was based on a book, said I got to read the book. I read it entirely on my phone. Now, this is one that I read as an electronic borrow from our library. I said before, I don't really care for that as my primary form of reading, but it was what was available, and so I did. Found out he'd written other stuff, really liked his style of writing in The Martian, was intrigued by the title, Project Hail Mary, and I read it on my phone also, again, borrowing it from our library. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about either of these books. I encourage you to read them. But the first one, The Martian, involves a man who is stranded on Mars. Won't get into the how or why. The rest of his crew left. They thought he was dead. And so the book is about his survival on Mars. The other one, Project Hail Mary. Earth is in trouble. The sun is starting to dim. There's something that's causing it to lose its energy. All of Earth is united in an effort to find some new home. Our main character gets sent off into space. Turns out he is alone also, until he does meet another life form. It is not humanoid, but it is sentient. He's able eventually to communicate with it, and the book unfolds from there. Now, why do I like these two books so much? And why am I dedicating an episode of Perkins Pipes to them and really recommending them both to you? You may remember in school learning about literature and learning about the different types of conflict. All right, we talk about man versus man. We talk about man versus nature. Okay? We talk about man versus himself. And literature can more or less be divided into those categories. And while there is a little bit of man versus man in both of these novels, the vast majority of both of them constitute man versus nature and somewhat also man versus himself. And I love that. Both of these books have a very small cast of characters. One central character in each, and even then, the supporting characters, honestly, fairly minimal role. A little bit more of a role, I think, in the Project Hail Mary for some of the other characters. But really, it's a one-man show, pretty much, in both of these books. And I like that. I like the starkness of it. Just seeing life in the world, or in this case, one case Mars, or in the other case, the far-flung reaches of space, through the perspective of one person. If you think about it, it's very similar to 2001: A Space Odyssey by Arthur C. Clarke, which is, again, one man versus nature, somewhat against the computer as well, but at any rate, I like the starkness of that. I like well, here's the thing. Weir writes two things very, very well. He writes the local environment of the main character. In The Martian, it's the area that he lives on Mars. He's constructed a habitat in which to live, made up of parts and materials and things from the expedition that had left him accidentally. That wasn't malicious. And so he's able to construct this habitat. And in the Project Hail Mary, the main character is on this spaceship for really almost the entire book. And Weir does a fabulous job of constructing that local environment. You absolutely feel as if you're there. You can put yourself into the rooms and the spaces that he is in. Both of these characters. You can easily travel with them from one room to the next, or from one part of the structure to the next. Wonderfully visual and yet often minimalistic. I think that Weir does a nice job of sketching. Right? He just sketches the interior of these ships and facilities, and yet it's sufficient for you, the reader, to be drawn in. The other thing that Weir does so well, in fact, I think perhaps even better than his depiction of the local environment of the protagonist, is the stark, desolate, dangerous beauty of, in the one book, the Martian landscape, and the other book, Space Itself. Stark, dangerous, beauty. If you're a fan at all of black and white photographs or black and white paintings, if you like black and white films, if you enjoy seeing Neil Armstrong bouncing around on the moon and the black and white footage, I think you would like these. To me, they're black and white. And that's not to say there isn't color in them, but the landscapes he depicts are very, very stark, and to me, in my mental film, are in shades of gray and black and some white. And I absolutely love that. I love the starkness of it. And of course, the man versus nature aspect means there's got to be some danger. And indeed there is. Both on the Martian landscape and regarding space itself. The other reason I like these so much, and I mentioned this before, that I'm more of a science fiction fan than I am a fantasy fan. Although I must say at the time of this recording, actually I happen to have this out here with me, I am rereading Beowulf, the J.R.R. Tolkien version of Beowulf, which has some amazing commentary and notes by Tolkien. In fact, we would not be we wouldn't be reading Beowulf at all in the 20th, 21st centuries were it not for a seminal 1936 lecture that Tolkien gave called Beowulf, the Monsters and the Critics, I believe was the name of the lecture. So I am reading this right now, and at some point I'm going to get back into The Lord of the Rings and so forth. That said, though, I really do tend to prefer science fiction to fantasy. I like the realism. I like the science. I like the technology. And yet, of course, it's fiction. So the author can create and do pretty much whatever he or she wants to do with it. So anyhow, The Martian and Project Hail Mary, both by Andy Weir. So, some questions for you. Have you ever read either one of these? And I think he's got another one. It's called Artemis. Have you read any Andy Weir books? Would love to hear your thoughts on Andy Weir in general. Perhaps you've seen the movie The Martian. If so, give some thoughts about The Martian. What do you think about man versus nature, man versus himself? Those two ways of categorizing literature. I think most literature today, probably really most literature through time, while they may have had aspects of both of those, have been some level of man versus man. So talk to us. Do you like man versus nature? Think Jack London novels, okay? White Fang, Call of the Wild, right? That kind of stuff. Do you like those kinds of books? If so, what do you like about them? If not, what do you not like about them? Talk to us about science fiction. Not fantasy this time, but specifically science fiction. You like science fiction? And what would you think about being stranded on another planet like Mars or on a ship in space? Ooh, does that make you scared, make you nervous, make you excited? Love to hear your thoughts about that as well. Folks, and by the way, I'm thinking of another book, and at some point may have to throw this one in the mix. Rendezvous with Rama, again, an Arthur C. Clarke novel, which is very, very much man versus nature, albeit not understood nature. We won't get into that one right now, but a little teaser perhaps for another time. So, as Malcolm Guite likes to say, I do these little things in order at last to do nothing, or as I like to say in Latin, Parva ago ut tandem, nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.
walk the earth, diesel and